This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime.
Hello and welcome. Farmers across states like Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Punjab have now been protesting, asking for loan waivers, and these states are now scrambling to find the money in their coffers to grant these waivers. Our focus on the show today is going to be Agri-Tech and the pros and cons of these technological innovations in the agricultural space. We will meet different startups in this space, speak to agro experts to see if they're actually helping, and get to know from investors what the investor space here looks like. Starting with the Noida-based startup SkyMet. Take a look. Unpredictable weather. One of the many contributors to India's current agricultural crisis. Now, data-driven agri-tech startups working for profit in the farming sector are attempting to bridge this climate information gap, such as the Noida-based weather tech company SkyMet.
But India is probably the most weather sensitive because monsoon it decides, it contributes to set 1% of GDP. It connects to about 650 million people's livelihoods almost directly. And there are two sectors that actually are very sensitive to weather and climate in India. One of them is agriculture, the other is energy.
With over 5,800 weather data units placed across 18 states, they collect real-time hourly information, which is then processed using synoptic and satellite images and claims to be more accurate than any other weather prediction analysis. Data is collected across parameters such as humidity, temperature, wind speed and rainfall at high geographic resolutions, which is then broken down to levels as micro as an individual farming area.
We are able to basically track every lightning strike in real time across this country.
Being able to track every lightning strike has been Jatin's goal for years. Before SkyMet began accurate weather predictions, their first startup idea was visualizing weather for news channels.
My father had been working for the IMD. He was a vendor and still is to the IMD. And I kind of knew about data, but IMD is not really known as a service provider. And would not customize, and a lot of the data, I know where the data was, it was not converted into a format that was usable, even though there was significant amount of technology that the taxpayer of India had actually invested in. So initially I got in by weather presentation.
They then pivoted to a weather-sensitive agri-tech app in regional languages for farmers to preempt heavy rainfall or strong winds.
हमें पता लगा कि विंड बहुत तेज आंधी चलने वाली है, 2-3 दिन में विंड स्पीड रहने वाली है 25 किलोमीटर पर हावर्स। तो जैसे आम है, मैंगो है, ज़्यादा चलेगा तो टूट के गिर देंगे। हम उसको सुरक्षित कर लेते हैं, पहले उसको तोड़ के किसी ठीक स्थान पे रख लेते हैं, स्टोर में रख लेते हैं, ठीक है। और जैसे हमने सिंचाई करनी है, कल गेहूं में पानी देना है और हमें ये पता है कल 15 mm बारिश हो जाएगी, तो हम पानी नहीं देंगे।
Text message broadcasts and physical signboards of weather warnings specific to small local villages are also used to bridge the data connectivity gap. But this wasn't the only challenge.
The risk has to be ascertained at an individual farm basis, because any macro kind of intervention or measurement does not seem to have an impact, and we are struggling with it right now. And it is a very difficult problem to solve in a democratic setup, because you also have the problem of landowners, agriculture versus tenancies, especially in eastern part of India, who are actually outside any kind of visible structure.
Apart from farmers, banks also come to SkyMet for data. Using 2-meter wide unmanned aerial vehicles with RGB and chlorophyll sensitive cameras, the startup helps banks decide the health of farms for agro insurance settlement claims.
Once we have some thousands of photographs clicked over the area, we mosaic them and create a regional coverage. And then we relate that to Google Earth images to geo-reference them. And then we use cadastral maps to identify which farmer is owning which particular plot.
However, farmers say these insurances hardly ever work in their favor. They say insurance schemes end up exploiting more than helping.
पूरा पक्का फसल होता है हमारा, फसल होने के बावजूद उसका हमारे को पता नहीं लगता है और झुलस रोग आ जाता है और सारी फसल झुलस जाती है। उसमें यानी कि 25% फसल बचती है तो हम मारे जाते हैं।
वो तो कहते हैं मिल जाएंगे जी, वो नुकसान होगा जब मिलेंगे, अभी तो नुकसान थोड़ा है आपका, 40% होगा जब मिलेंगे, ऐसे बताते हैं जी।
सरकार तो एक ना उनके एजेंट बन के रहेगी, इंश्योरेंस कंपनी होगी। किसी किसान को इंश्योरेंस का कोई फायदा नहीं मिलता, सभी के ऊपर बैठते हैं, केसीसी से कटवा देते हैं। किसान बेचारा अपनी जमीन गिरवी रख कर बैंक को 20 लाख रुपए लेता है, तो बैंक वाले उससे 2 लाख रुपए तो काट लेंगे केसीसी में, वहाँ काट लेंगे।
According to the State of India's Environment 2017 study, under 2 union government farm insurance schemes, banks have collected a total of 3,610 crores across India's farmers, and 77% of these claims have not been paid to farmers. Since their weather data is freely accessible, SkyMath's revenue comes from ad sales and their tie-ups with insurance banks. They are currently funded by the VC firm Omnivore and claim to be profitable. Joining us now on the show to shed some light on this issue is Devendra Sharma, who is an expert on the space of agriculture in India. Thank you for joining us, sir. So to start off with, we are seeing pockets across the country in Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Punjab protesting right now because of the agricultural crisis and the debt amongst farmers. So when we look at possible relief for this crisis, what role does technology play? Are technological researchers relevant when we look at relief, long-term relief for this crisis?
Well, I think technology has a role to play, nobody denies it. But technology has to be relevant to what the farmer needs, not be imposed on farmers by the industry. Right. And the researchers normally follow the prescription which is given by the industry. Now let me illustrate this. You might say that Maharashtra or Madhya Pradesh farmers need to raise up productivity. But how do you answer this? Look at Punjab. Punjab has the highest productivity of cereals in the world. It has 98% assured irrigation. And yet farmers are dying. What more technology do you want to bring in? I mean, how much more technology you want to load the farmers with? Actually, they are suffering or they are dying because of too much of technology.
Could you expand a little bit on what too much technology means?
You know, every second household in Punjab, the farming household, has a tractor. You actually don't need tractor for an area less than 10 acres. And yet it has been pushed onto the farmers where you reduce the limits by saying it is okay if you have 2 acres of land. So every second household has a tractor. And now we are moving on to tractors of 105 horsepower or 90 horsepower. Why do you need all those huge machines in agriculture? Nobody has answered this question because the industry is happy with it, politicians are happy with it, and so are the policymakers.
Let's talk about the different kind of agri-tech startups that are entering this space. One type is those that are trying to disrupt the supply chain, the agricultural supply chain. So they are trying to become the middleman or remove a middleman between the farmer and retailer or farmer and consumer, etc. So when these that are entering the supply chain, when they scale, how does it affect the different stakeholders? What impact does it have to the different stakeholders like sabji mandis, farmers, consumers, retailers?
We as a nation despise the middlemen. Every time I hear a discussion, we all say a middleman must go away. But you know, we are very happy with a middleman who wears a tie and comes in a Maruti or in a Toyota. So that's the new breed of middleman which is taking over, replacing the earlier middleman that we are used to, who lives in dhoti, kurta or pajama. Now, unfortunately, the startups that I see, especially the apps that are being produced in agriculture, are primarily serving the role which the middleman would play. Now, because it needs a revenue structure, you can't come out with an app which advocates, sustainable agriculture practices, how you should be consuming less of electricity or less of pesticides and so on. I haven't seen an app on those lines.
Right, and so supply chain is one aspect. There are other agri-tech startups that are coming into the space of fintech as well. And now when we look at these protests happening when different farmers across different states are asking for loan waivers, Arun Jaitley has made it clear that whatever waivers have to be granted have to come from the state's own coffers, each individual state. Many are also saying that even if loan waivers are granted by states, that's still a very short-term solution and not a long-term relief plan. It's temporary relief. So if we were to look at a long-term financial solution, Is it possible that fintech startups coming up in the agricultural space that are looking at safer lending practices or safer loaning, safer credit could actually make an impact here?
See, unless you are trying to make agriculture economically viable and profitable, all these apps will end up, whether they are financial apps or whatever, they are trying to tell us how to use the credit in a right way, are basically doing the job what banks should have been doing themselves. So what is the big deal here? So, you don't want to give farmers income, but you want to extract income from his pocket. Okay. That is what the entire strategy is. So, therefore, agriculture is in a dark crisis because of this kind of approach.
And, since we're talking about financial policy, let's look at the GST for a minute, because the GST has kept unpackaged goods, unpackaged meats tax-free. So, what is your view on this current GST policy that we are seeing? Is it going to make the situation better, worse? What are your views?
It's a jugaad GST which the world would be laughing at what India has done. And in agriculture, it is very, very sad that first of all, they are trying to bring agriculture in the GST bracket by saying that those who lease out land would now be taxed 18%. Which basically means that you are taxing half the population which is engaged in agriculture. Now, this is definitely regressive, and I think farmers have still not understood what GST would imply.
I'd request you now if you could identify a couple of spaces in the agricultural sector where if investment was given to technology, when technology could come into these spaces, it would actually help.
Well, I'm very clear about this, that in agriculture is full of people who are entrepreneurs. Let's be very clear, agriculture is completely privatized in the sense that farming is a privatized business in India. Now, I don't understand why can't we have startups in agriculture. When I say startup in agriculture, I'm not looking at the value chain, the middleman and so on. What I'm looking at is why can't we give, let's say, 10 by 10 or 100 meter by 100 meter land to younger people who are in the villages. I think it is not difficult. If you can give Infosys or the IT sector land at 1 square meter, 1 rupee per square meter, I think you can also give land to the poor people, the younger people in the villages at 1 rupee per square meter, and I can tell you they will change the face of this country.
Absolutely, sir. That's a great point. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And it's time for us to take a short break now, but we'll be back with more on different agri-tech startups as well as what investors in this space have to say. Stay tuned.